What is going on, everybody? Zack Rosenblatt here with Mike Kaye for the latest episode of the No Huddle Show. It was a night of reunions in Jacksonville at TIAA Bank Field. We saw Carson Wentz and Nick Foles reunite in the middle of the field. Zach Ertz was there. Mike Kaye was reuniting with some of his old friends in his old city. But before we get into the game, what was it a weird feeling like covering a game from the other side?
It was. I was driving on my way over here. I had one, like, you know when you drive somewhere that you've driven to a million times and you kind of forget you were driving, and then once you get the
and you just happened to show up at the place you were going to.
Yeah. That's like kind of just like what happened. It was so bizarre. It was so surreal. But I started on this beat almost a year ago. I got hired.
That's true.
I got hired.
It's been a year. Like, we knew around this time you were coming, right?
Yeah, you and I were having our discussions. Obviously,
I think Elliot had this was his last game,
right?
And then you and I started talking after that kind of
right.
So
and
we
then,
were in Cleveland or something.
Yeah, and then I got hired the day of the last preseason game for everybody.
Yeah.
And then
you drove back and forth 4 times from Jacksonville to New Jersey.
I got some frequent driver miles. Anyway, no, it was cool. I miss it here, but for the people, you know what I mean? I really enjoy covering the Eagles. This has been awesome. I wouldn't change this last year for the world, but it did bring up some feelings. It was a very cool moment.
Yeah. So we can tie this back to the Jaguars because the guy you covered on the Jaguars is kind of one of the bigger storylines for the Eagles tonight. But so what we're going to do, for the preseason games, and if we like how this goes, we're going to do this in the regular season too. We're going to go through 6, 8, whatever, however many things we learned over the course of a game. Tonight we came up with 6. And I'll start with this one. It's Cody Kessler went down. The Eagles lost another quarterback. You and I both said it didn't make any sense that they didn't bring in any other quarterbacks, and that was obvious today. Carson Wentz didn't play, even though he kind of teased everybody before when he showed up at practice all geared up and warming up. Maybe him and Nick Foles just wanted to play with all the fans' hearts or something like that. But he didn't play, and Cody Kessler, I believe, was it on the first drive? Yeah, first drive. I believe it was actually his fault. Everybody was blaming Andre Dillard, but he got hit from the blind side. I think he was supposed to call out a blitzer, and he got just destroyed by Dayton Jones. It was a little UCLA on USC crime, and he left the game, not immediately. They called timeout, and then he limped off, and it was pretty obvious that it was concussion-related. They eventually confirmed that. Didn't return, went through concussion protocol. We don't know what his status is. The moral of the story here is, number one, Clayton Thorson just played 4 quarters, which probably shouldn't have happened, but we'll get into him probably next. And number 2, they need to bring somebody in. That's a fact.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was ludicrous they didn't bring in another arm. I thought they would just bring in an arm, like a physical body.
Yeah.
Attached to an arm.
Even if it's a tackling dummy and you just put a jersey on it.
Yeah, I get, I don't know. I don't think Luis Perez is getting another call here.
A tackling dummy with a jersey on it.
Yeah, but... Yeah, I mean, I don't know while I'm talking, if you could pull up the quarterbacks that are available, but man, Landry Jones just signed with the XFL today.
Insert generic Madden name.
Yeah, I mean, maybe
we said some of the names last year, but Matt Castle, Mark Sanchez, Brock Osweiler, Brandon Whedon, Landry Jones just signed with the XFL. Yeah. Trevon Boykin is mentioned here. I think he's bad guy off the field. So,
yeah,
it's the pickings are slim, but there's a guy with an arm somewhere that can move the ball 10 yards down the field.
Yeah, if you have a bottom of the roster guy that is not
bring TJ Kinney back,
right? If you have a bottom of the roster guy that you think could appeal to another team who has 4 or 5 quarterbacks, you do the Eli Harold, is what we'll call it, and you just swap the bottom of the roster.
Yeah, good point, actually. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, this is... Okay, I want to say something, because I was quiet most of the week, and you wrote a great column. There is absolutely no reason to play Carson Wentz during the preseason, and if this didn't prove it tonight, I don't know
how much more evidence do you need?
Yeah, at this point, it's evident that playing a quarterback in the preseason is really not worth the thing. Let's go over the people that didn't start tonight. Jason Peters, Lane Johnson, Jason Kelsey, Brandon Brooks, Isaac Seumalo, Alshon Jeffrey, Deshaun Jackson, Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert,
Nelson Aguilar.
I mean, what do you... Darren Sproles. Also, why play any of those guys in the it doesn't make sense to me.
But I mean, this is real football. Like this was like I get everybody's like he needs to be in a live. He's played football his whole life. He doesn't need to be in a live situation.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't play the entire. He played one game during.
I'm taking crazy pills.
I mean, it is bizarre, but he played one preseason game his rookie year. He played no preseason games last year. Granted, the 1 year he exploded, he played all four.
But also his rookie year, he hurt his ribs in the first game, didn't play the rest of it, and then his first game of the season, he led a scoring drive on the very first drive.
Right.
So there's no formula that says because you played 4 snaps in a preseason game, you're going to be fine. He can be rusty in the first half against the Redskins.
There are executives that just sweat this entire preseason and are like, I just don't know why we do this.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody in a front office the other day, and they were like, "I just hate this." It was literally their response.
I wonder if they're going to change. The NFL's going to change something.
They got to do something.
Maybe even make it 3 games or something. Like you got to.
And there was no one here. There was no one here. What do you?
I don't get it. It's not like you're selling tickets.
I mean, that 4th preseason game doesn't even make sense. Also,
the 4th one especially.
Can we talk about the order of everything? Shouldn't the first preseason game be the first 2 preseason?
The one where you just have I guess because you want the guys rested for the first week.
Sure, but what?
Preseason's stupid.
It's a dumb thing. Here. Anyway, the Eagles are doing the right thing by not playing Carson Wentz because he could have easily been that quarterback on that first drive, and it happens. Nate Sudfeld's going to be put in bubble wrap for a couple of weeks. Cody Kessler, in my opinion, did nothing to lose the job. He did not look good, but if he can play next week after coming off the concussion, terrific. Let him play the entire game. If not, you need maybe even 2 camp. I don't know how you put Clayton Thorson out here for 2 whole games next week, especially against the Ravens, who have a very good defense and have really good depth. And if they're going to play their starters on defense, you're in trouble. Clayton, you're going to bring him up in a second. It's a lot to ask. It's just a lot to ask. I know you want to get a full evaluation of him, but that's a lot to ask.
Well, so here. You take the baton here about Clayton Thorson. That's the second thing we learned is that he's not the worst, is what I wrote down. We don't even need he didn't have any such aggressively bad throws that we even need to do a how did this get thrown segment tonight.
I don't have a baton, but I have a mic right here. Clayton made some big boy throws today. He was fearless he played like he knew he could get cut if he was bad. And so I think he kind of went with it. He led a few scoring drives. What was the final score, 24?
24-10.
24, okay. So
the Greg Ward pass especially.
Yeah, so he led 4 scoring drives. That's a good day. That's a good day at the office. Granted, it was against some guys that probably won't be on NFL teams next year. But, he played without fear, and I think that's all you can really ask. Plus, he was given a situation similar to to Cody Kessler last week, where Cody kind of crumbled after coming in off the bench. Thorson had a really bad moment early on. They broke up a screen on the 3rd down play that he came in for, but then he kind of reset and found a rhythm. And listen, he made some bad throws still. Yeah. There were some bad throws, but the takeaway is He's not afraid to throw downfield. He trusts his teammates, and I think he showed some potential. You could kind of see why a team would have interest in him.
Yeah, so if you're having a developmental quarterback, if you're using a roster spot on that, you want to see progress, and he showed progress.
Right,
so
that's all you can have.
If we were certain he was going to get cut as of last week, I'm less certain this week. I'm still not sure where he stands on the roster. He wasn't good tonight. He was just better than he was last week, which is, I'm trying to think of a good analogy. I can't think of one.
Well, so here's what I would say, right? So we're writers, right? And you and I would constantly talk about writing habits. I think he took away some of the bad habits that he had. You know what I mean? He's learning from mistakes, I think. And
which is a good sign.
And he's feeling a rhythm, he's getting a hold of his workspace. And I think that's something that's very difficult for a rookie quarterback, especially when you only get 3 or 4 reps at a time during practice. You don't get that rhythm. We saw it with Miles Sanders tonight. You have to find a rhythm. These young guys need to feel confident, and I think Thorson gained some confidence tonight.
All right, thing we learned number 3. we need to talk. That we can make this the Miles Sanders segment. I'm sure we both have some stuff to say about him. You want to start it off?
Yeah,
he's so good, man.
He averaged 6.2 yards per carry, 5 carries for 31 yards, and they were impressive. They were an impressive 31 yards. Look, this guy's good. He's really, really good, and he had a great blitz pickup up the middle on the touchdown score from Thorson to Greg Ward. I thought okay. So the first run, Jordan Mailata had a great seal block at right tackle. That was a good run. I mean, but he had a wide open thing.
It was a typical Sanders run.
Backed up against his own. It was 1st and 10. Backed up against his own end zone, 5-yard line. He did a subtle cut behind Andre Dillard to get into space, broke 2 tackles, and then took on a third defender as he picked up a few more yards. It was a 16-yard play. I mean, it's not going to be like a highlight on SportsCenter, but his vision and his subtleness as a runner, that's really impressive. It's something you've got to feel excited about. And Jordan Howard really hasn't stood out during training camp. He had a nice 10-yard run today, but it's evident that Sanders is a home run hitter when in comparison to Howard, who's more of like the, meat and potatoes kind of guy.
Yeah, I think the blitz pickup was like my biggest takeaway from him today. Last week he got docked maybe unfairly because there was like a play where 2 guys blitzed and he picked up the right guy. Doug Peterson gave him a shout out. And then this week he had the blitz pickup on the Greg Ward touchdown where a linebacker, I forget which one, but a dude weighs like 240 pounds.
AJ Eads.
Yeah, that guy. And Miles picked him up and he gave Clayton Thorson just enough time to score a touchdown. And if that was the thing that was keeping Miles from being the number 1 running back, he's showing that he's getting a lot better at that. And I asked him about that after the game, and I find it very interesting. He's really aware that he knows what he has to do. He said he just needs to work on the technique. He knows that that's the thing that's a sticking point with him. And it's self-awareness, and he just seems like he really learns quickly, and he has natural talent. If you listen to our podcast from earlier in the offseason, I was convinced Jordan Howard was going to be the guy for the first half of the season. If Jordan Howard is the guy by week 4, I'd be surprised.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good timestamp. I do think Jordan Howard will be an early down back.
Yeah.
I do think that's
week
going to happen.
1.
Yeah, for sure. You've got to be able to. You're only giving him. He's got 8 touches in the preseason.
2 weeks,
yeah. So I agree with you. You and I are completely on the same page with that. What I find impressive about him is I remember when I interviewed him coming out of during following his pro day, and we did that Q&A with him. He's so aware of what he needs to improve, and he's gone about it the right way. People talked about him as a receiver. He's looked great as a receiver in practice. People have talked about him as a pass blocker. He's looked good in one-on-ones. Now he looks good in the preseason.
And his ball carrying.
Yeah,
Ball security.
Right, ball security. So he's...
he hasn't fumbled it yet, I don't believe, so...
Well, now fumble it next week, I believe that's granite. But anyway...
Still works.
But, so I think if you're the Eagles, you have to feel really, really good about what you have at running back. And really, theoretically, he is the number 1 pick for this year because ideally you don't want to see Andre Dillard in a game. But I think what's interesting, and I didn't really think about it till just now, you look at their entire draft class of 5 guys, all 5 guys have had very clear, hey, I'm not sure about this, aspects to their game.
Smart guys, yeah.
Right. Dillard, the running game, people didn't know if he could run block. He's looked great as a run blocker. Miles Sanders you don't know about his pass blocking and his ball handling skills. Looking great there. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside people didn't think he was very fast or a great route runner. Boom, he's doing that. Sharif Miller had no pass rushing moves. Tonight he put a spin move and looked like a veteran player. Several veteran players were praising him after the game. And then Thorson was just bad on tape. So now he looks kind of passable.
So being not bad.
But I think that speaks to what Howie Roseman and Joe Douglas kind of set up.
High IQ guys.
Yeah, high IQ guys that are very aware and guys that want to work and get better. And I think that's a rarity. Not a rarity, but it's a tough thing to find for a whole draft class.
And to go back to the whole Jordan Howard thing, you and I were talking about earlier, I think the two of them, their skill sets like pair really well together. I think we just both, and most of America, I guess, thought that it would be like the reverse, where Jordan Howard would be, the ground and pound guy, and then you have Miles Sanders come in on third down or whatever. But now it's starting to feel like Miles Sanders is going to be the number one guy, and then you have, their thunder and lightning type thing, where Jordan Howard is a short yardage guy, which he's really good at. He's one of the best in the NFL at that. He gets a lot of flack from, I know there's some scouts who don't love the way he plays, and he's a little slow of a runner, but he's a good pass protector, and he's good short yardage. So I just think that's a really good dynamic duo. And then you have Darren Sproles who can come in and be the pass catcher, and then Corey Clemente, who we'll talk about a little bit later, if he's healthy, he's a good, as good of a fourth running back as you can have. So the fourth point, let's go back a little more negative since we've been so positive.
Okay.
What is the deal with Stefan Wisniewski? What? How much longer can they keep him at center?
I was having flashbacks.
He had 2 bad snaps today that I remember.
I was having flashbacks to 2015 when he was the center in Jackson.
Get some cold sweats and.
I mean, look. Listen,
he's a veteran.
Yeah. I mean, he hasn't snapped in 3 years, but
still.
But it's been bad, guys. Nate Herbig, who started playing center 3 weeks ago, had never snapped the ball up until 3 weeks ago, was put in this game and it had 1 bad snap, and it was high. Look, it's getting to be ridiculous. You and I had talked about it off the record. We didn't think it would be a big story until he actually did it in the game. Well, guess what? He did it twice in a game.
The fans got to see it now.
Yeah, this is real. This is a thing. And
he's not a lock to make this team.
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. As a matter of fact, I'd have him off my 53. I know you're putting at yours. No spoiler alerts.
Well,
but that's definitely
he's one of my toughest decisions right now.
And the thing is, too, is Matt Pryor didn't have a great game tonight.
On the bubble.
But I would rather keep Matt Pryor over Stefan Wisniewski because I know that Isaac Seumalo can play center.
Yeah, and so that's interesting. So the only reason why I still am leaning towards Wisniewski being on there, unless they can go out and get a veteran guy, they don't have any veterans on besides Vaitai. In that reserve unit. You have Dillard, you have Matt Pryor, you have Jordan Mailata, and then hypothetically, if one of the undrafted guys snuck onto the roster instead of one of those guys, those are all, you don't want to rely on those people. But that's we've talked about this in the past, as jokingly with Chance Warmack. Just because you have experience doesn't mean it's good experience. And I don't know if Stefan Wisniewski is a startable player anymore in this point in his career. He hasn't seemed like it. At least he didn't play very well last year. That's why Seumalo is the future at left guard now.
Well, and the thing is, too, is when you have a guy at center, they have a lot more responsibility. They got to call the offense and do all that stuff. But as far as blocking goes, you're going to take on a lot of double teams. You have a lot less physical responsibility. I mean, mentally, you do have a ton of things to do, and you got to snap the football. But you can protect a guy sometimes at center. Sometimes you'll see guys get moved into center, and Brandon Linder's a guy who was a pretty good guard
on the Jaguars. Right?
Yeah, he played well at center. I mean, there are guys that you can protect there. They've got AJ Cann, who played right guard for them for the last 5 years. They're moving him to center because maybe that can protect them long term. So. Look, I wouldn't put Wisniewski on my 53 if I had a 53 right now. Because I don't want his contract to become guaranteed because he's a vested veteran.
You can always bring him back hypothetically.
Right, you could bring him back. Nobody's going to pick up Stefan Wisniewski.
Nobody wanted to pick him up when he was an unrestricted free agent.
Right, and the thing is, too, is I think when you look at the way this team's structured, you have there is a genuine concern about not having veteran depth, but Dillard's playing so well. Vaitai can play left tackle, right guard, and right tackle. At this point,
Petta's been getting raves. I don't pay attention enough to the O-line to confirm or deny that, but people that know football have said that he's been good.
I'll have to rewatch the game.
He's a guy that he got the biggest signing bonus, I believe.
Yeah, he was one of the big
so if anybody's going to make it, it's probably him out of those undrafted guys.
Yeah, I mean, what you do need to factor in with that is if you get a huge signing bonus, you can factor in that money into the practice squad roster. So,
but if they cut Wiz though, then or Pryor.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you cut Wiz, Suapeta is your backup left guard for sure.
Yeah,
there's no. Because I think Herbig's still kind of a work in progress. He's a guy that I think they're putting at center because they know he's a work in progress.
As somebody described it the other day, he's like a big swinging, he's swinging for the fences or he's striking out kind of guy.
Yeah.
He'll get a pancake or he'll give up a sack.
And he comes off as a guy who really is still learning how to control his he's a huge dude. Control himself in space too. So what do you got for the fifth spot?
We're gone out of order, but
yeah.
So fifth thing we learned, I'm going to name. There are 4 guys that really.
Oh, we're playing a game.
Yeah, well, it's not a game. It's still part.
Can we call it a game?
But you can talk about whichever guys you want.
All right.
So Greg Ward, Deshaun Hall, Jordan Mailata, and Josh Adams were all relative standouts tonight. I felt like. Mailata's probably the only one who's close to a lock to make the 53-man roster. Yeah, I'd say close to a lock, but he's pretty much a lock. You can talk about him. I'll just talk about him real quick. We were a little more critical than it seemed like some people were last week. I think it was an inconsistent performance last week. Showed flashes. Tonight was mostly a good performance.
Yeah, he looked good.
And he's just such a freakish athlete. If he can just figure out the football side of things, he's gonna be really good. But Deshaun Hall is somebody in particular who stood out the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think he's making this team. I think Schwartz really likes him.
I mean, Joe Osman going out for the year almost sealed it for him.
Yeah.
Did Eli Harold really play tonight?
Yeah, he had a couple of snaps on 4th down. I saw him, and I talked to him after the game. He's gained 30 pounds.
Deshaun?
Yeah, he's gained 30 pounds. 30 pounds.
Since last year?
Yeah, you know how
muscle?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah. He had 2 sacks tonight. Look, I think he's outplayed Josh Sweat. I think he's depending, I think he's outplayed Josh Sweat in the preseason. Not in training camp, but in the preseason, I think he's definitely outplayed him.
And when the lights go on, he plays well.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you want. I mean, I am curious. I mean, I think this team was expecting a lot out of Josh Sweat. I mean, sacks are it's nice. I mean, he's getting some pressures, but Deshaun Hall's balling out there.
He had a strip sack tonight.
Yeah, it's the second one in as many weeks.
And he had 2 sacks overall tonight.
Yeah, I mean, he wrecked that kid. What is it? Leonard Webster or whatever, the right tackle. He worked. But
also, that we should say that reserve offensive line group from the Jaguars was
it was ghastly. Bad. Yeah, Ben Joanna, who actually I talked to at New Jersey listeners. He I was talking to James O'Shaughnessy in the Jaguars locker room for a second, and he said, "Oh man, I saw you're in New Jersey, right?" And Ben Joanna, who used to play for the Jets, was like, "Yeah, I'm from New Jersey." Well, I was like, "Oh, wow, okay."
There you go.
Oh, you also got wrecked by Deshaun Hall and Sharif Miller. So there you go. It's nice meeting you.
Yeah.
And then let's talk about Greg Ward.
Yeah.
Because I think he's a very interesting case study. So last week he played most of the game, but wasn't targeted once. Just disappeared. And then didn't really have a great week of training camp practice.
Yeah, I didn't notice him as much as I had throughout camp.
Yeah, he was balling before. Now, he makes this catch, which Thorson put up for him, probably should have been picked off, really. His body control was, it went through the DB,
He made a great catch, though. It was mostly Ward.
Yeah, I was excited about the way he bobbed and weaved through there. Yeah. He showed really good vision. It seemed like it was a great play by him. 38 yards. But then Markin Michelle, who he's been competing with, you didn't really notice him tonight. So,
And those two have been it's the stock up, they've... I'm trying to think of the right. I'm low on words right now. It's late.
Yeah, it's late.
But Michelle had that great week last week, and Ward kind of disappeared. And then in the spring it was mostly Michelle and not Ward, and throughout training camp it was mostly Ward and not Michelle.
There's a will they, won't they?
Yeah.
That we cannot figure out.
But the advantage Ward has is obviously one, he's been in this system now 3 years, being in training camp / the practice squad a little bit. The AAF I think really helped him. He's a great athlete. And the fact, so he can be used as an interesting weapon because he was a quarterback. They used him today. His throw didn't work. He acknowledged that. He wished he could have that one back. He's kind of their emergency quarterback right now. Mm-hmm. If a game was tomorrow, he'd be their number 2 quarterback probably, which is a scary thought. But I still don't think they're going to keep 6 receivers.
I don't either.
But if they do, it seems like he's the favorite.
So, yeah, what I think is interesting is I think they're going to... Yeah, I think they're only going to keep 5. I mean, Matt Collins was out there today. Bless his soul. Good for him, right? Good for him. It was his first game in almost 100 years, I think, by the way we all talk about it.
Yeah, we're going to talk about him a little bit.
Yeah, but so not to get too far ahead of myself, I agree with you. I don't think they're going to... Because they can't. Like, look at all these injuries they got at quarterback.
That's the problem. Because they're going to have all these spots taken up.
Quarterback, tight end, like, this is getting ridiculous. But I think if you can get that guy to the practice squad, he's probably going to play at some point this season.
Greg Ward?
Yeah, Greg Ward, Mark Michelle, whoever wins that. I mean, you could theoretically get both of them.
Yeah, they probably will, honestly. They'll at least start out that way, yeah.
Right. And so, again, I think when you look at this roster, it's going to be difficult, but if they can get claimed off waivers or... Listen, the Jaguars are a team that has has really minimal depth at wide receiver. Maybe that's an interest to them. Josh Adams. Let's talk about Josh Adams.
So, he was a guy that we were pretty down... For two people that were as high as anybody in the Philly media on Josh Adams, I think. Last week and the way he kind of has played throughout training camp kind of soured us a little bit. I will say we have noted throughout camp that they've been targeting him a lot in practice, and that kind of came to fruition tonight where he had probably his best play as a pass catcher in his career, maybe. Like, he had a really good catch. I think he went for 16 yards. 19, sorry. And then... So he was really bad in goal line situations last year, which is like a weird thing for a big running back. And tonight he had a really good run on the goal line, scored a touchdown.
Yeah.
So if he can control his ball security, and if he's becoming a halfway decent pass catcher, and if he can be a goal line back, then all of a sudden, Wendell Smallwood, it seems like every year he disappears in the preseason and makes the team. I don't remember anything he did tonight.
He had 3 carries for 3 yards.
Like, Josh Adams is clearly more talented than him. Like, that's not even debatable. So if Josh Adams can become, he's such like a weird prospect because of his size and his skills don't match in a lot of ways. But if he can do those things that he was considered bad at, then he's creating value for himself, even if it's not with the Eagles and somewhere else.
Yeah, I agree with you. So we talked about the rookies, about how they have, a certain aspect of their game that's questioned. Both the things that we've questioned, everyone's questioned about Josh Adams is short yardage and receiving. And like you said, he kind of looked better as a receiver and a blocker than he did as a runner tonight. As a short yardage runner and a receiver. I mean, I think his numbers were terrible. Like, he had, I think 5 carries for 8 yards or something.
5 carries for 7 yards.
Yeah. So
that's kind of fun because we thought of the 2 plays that were signature non-Adams usual.
But I think that's one of those.
You can combine it, yeah.
But I think it's one of those ones that this is a situation where the numbers don't kind of speak to the performance in a lot of ways. Like, if they're improving on stuff that they've been kind of awful at. Because he was awful last year as a receiver and as a short yardage runner. I mean, that's encouraging.
The ball security has to get fixed, obviously.
Yeah. Well, he held on to the ball 5 times for 7 yards. So what you got for topic number 6?
And then we'll close out with the last one, and I'm calling it the mystery men. Because Matt Collins, who's been the mystery man, and then Corey Clemente has kind of become one because it's been kind of weird with him.
Yeah.
I know you want to talk about Corey, so go ahead.
Pride of New Jersey. So,
again, another guy you and I are both higher on than it seems like other people are.
Yeah, it's confusing because, when you look at the dynamic of this running back group, you would think that Corey Clemente fits in perfectly. The problem is he hasn't been, he's obviously hasn't been well. We don't even really understand the knee injury. I know he's talked about it, but,
we don't know the specifics of it.
Right. And so... He's practiced, he's been in team drills, but he's been running with the 3rd and the 4th string.
Which was confusing to me, especially if he's full go now. Unless they really are easing him back, but it still has been weird.
Yeah, you'd hope...
why not put him behind the better offensive line?
Yeah, he's kind of in the same situation as Paul Warlow, where it's in theory they're good enough to make the roster, but they're not on the field.
Using them,
Paul Warlow.
You're in Jacksonville, I guess.
Yeah, man, I'm having flashbacks. I'm sorry, guys. Warlow and Clemente to me, and then Mack at least got out there, I guess. But
tepid endorsement.
It is weird. It's so hard to evaluate guys when they're not out there. So Cody.
So it all depends on what they think of them. We don't know what they think of them.
Right. If we did, then we'd probably write better columns and better. Whatever. But the thing is, Cody Kessler, you can put into a mystery man thing. We've only seen him throw like 10 passes.
Yeah, true. He only threw, 5 times, 6 times last week?
Yeah, so he's thrown 10 passes. So it's like...
That's wild.
Yeah, I mean, so, you're looking at this situation where it's like, man, how do they evaluate something? Because there's a lot of injuries on this team, especially to guys that are proven. And it's one thing to be proven, but you also have to prove that you can come back from injury. Rodney McLeod hasn't played in the preseason yet.
Darby,
yeah, look, there's a lot of unknowns here. Like, in theory, this is like the best depth team in the league.
But it's theory, right?
But in practice, I mean, like, it's not pretty.
All right, I think that's a good note to wrap up on. More quarterback questions going into this week. I'm sure there'll be some answers by the time we record our next pod, probably on Monday. Make sure you guys leave us some comments, write us some reviews, send us some questions. We'll try and answer them on the next show. We're on all the podcast apps. And, thanks for listening, guys.
Deuces.